Welcome to this week's YouTube blog of When Push Comes to Shove. I'm Nikita and this is Sophie. Say hello.
Hello.
So we are interviewing women for the documentary and for my YouTube channel, and this week we are talking to Sophie, and we would like to hear everyone's birth story, so keep sending them in, keep emailing me at info@whenpushcomstoshove.co.uk if you want to be interviewed for this channel. Let me know. So Sophie, do you want to first tell everyone about your birth and how you came to the decision that you came to, etc., etc.? The floor is yours. Go.
Sure. So originally I when I was like going through my birth options, just went standard, I suppose, how everyone kind of knows where to go, to the doctor, and went to the, through the NHS. And originally I wanted to give birth at a birth centre, and I chose one that was attached to a hospital, because I thought, oh, if anything goes wrong, if anything happens, I'm right next to a hospital, and that's that just sort of made me feel safe. So I wanted to go, and I really wanted a natural birth. I really wanted a water birth, and I wanted to give birth as naturally as possible. And so that was, I thought, my option. I did want a home birth, but as I live at home with my parents, they weren't too keen. So that for me was kind of like a good middle ground. Then COVID hit, and everything changed because all the options then sort of got thrown up in the air. So they were talking about reducing, obviously, birth partners going into the birth centre. So then I asked my midwife if the home birth was possible, and she said yes, it was. So then started going down the road, and this was by this point I think I was about 36 weeks pregnant. Started going down the route of setting up for the home birth, and then sort of COVID evolved and things were changing week by week, and I was actually getting quite stressed with it all. And then on top of that, with my weekly bi-weekly meetings with the midwife, she measured my bump and told me I was measuring big, and by this point I'd actually done some hypnobirthing with my yoga instructor and was really loving hypnobirthing, and she actually gave me a lot of information about birth, a lot of which I had absolutely no idea about, and one of the things that she said was quite often, it was about the sort of cascade of interventions, is what they call it, and I'd already also read a birth book that was really informative as well. It was called Natural Mama, which really is helpful because it goes through all the kind of stages of pregnancy. And yeah, anyway, so they told me I was measuring big, and I'd heard through the book and my hypnobirthing instructor that can happen, and then you go in for a scan, and then and I was really worried because I'd heard that then there's a possibility of them saying that they're going to induce you. And I knew from stories of other friends and my sister-in-law, of their stories of when they had been induced, and I really didn't want to be induced. So after that meeting with my midwife, I actually didn't feel that great. I came home and I cried because I thought, my baby's not too big. I know he's not too big. I know my bump's not too big. And I really don't want to go in for this growth scan. And it, did just make me kind of think, I don't want to go back there because I don't want her to tell me that I have to do that. And then everything with COVID happened. And actually, for me, it was the perfect excuse to not go back. And then I was a little bit, sort of about a week, a little bit sort of on edge and thinking, oh God, I don't know what to do. What's going to happen? Where am I going to give birth? And I was really quite anxious. And then my hypnobirthing instructor told me about independent midwives. And I was like, what's that? I've never heard of them. And she also mentioned doulas, and I'd never heard of a doula. And anyway, I did some research and thought, oh my goodness, I'm now 37 weeks pregnant. Like, baby technically could come now. is this too late? And then I found fantastic independent midwife called Catherine, and I called her, and she said she was available, and I got really, really excited. And as soon as I met her, we had a Zoom chat, and she put me at ease completely, and told me lots and lots of things, and went over my whole pregnancy, and I just felt amazing. And she said that we could do a home birth, and so basically at that point as well, I thought that that might be something I couldn't afford either, and just so happened that my dad had to cancel a fishing trip because of COVID, and so he said that he would use the money for the fishing trip to pay for the independent midwife, which was amazing. And as soon as he said that I could hire her, I literally felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. It was like a huge sense of relief, because I really didn't want to give birth in the hospital with the COVID restrictions, with no support. It was something that was really stressing me. So yeah, as soon as I got the go ahead, I contacted my midwife. I was really relieved that I didn't have to go back with some sort of crappy excuse that I didn't want to go in for a growth scan and be like, well, actually, because I don't want an induction and I don't want this and blah blah blah. So so I told her that I wasn't going to attend the any more sessions, because I'd hired an independent midwife, and that was that. So I didn't have any more communications with them, and everything was handed over to Catherine, who was just incredible, and was sort of there every step of the way with any questions I had via WhatsApp. I'd call her, I'd message her, and she'd reply straight away and get back to me, and sort of just reassure me about any questions I had, that I was worried about. And I just felt so relaxed and so relieved that I didn't have to go anywhere, and I could just stay at home with my mum, my dad and my brother, and give birth at home, and she would just come and help. And it just, I can't even express the relief that it gave me, knowing that I didn't have to go into hospital. It really did make me feel, really relaxed.
Were you afraid of not being in hospital, just in case? Because a lot of people say, well, what if something goes wrong?
Well, it's funny, because originally I was, and that's why I did think, oh, the birth centre's a lovely middle ground, because it's right next to the hospital, so just in case I've got a hospital there. But after speaking to Catherine, that just went out the window. She was just so confident and calm about everything, and just explained to me how natural birth is, and how I think the thing that really hit it home was that in all the births she's delivered in, I can't remember how many years, but years and years of experience of birth, she said something like only 5 people had ever ended up going to hospital out of, I think it was hundreds of births. And I thought,
well, that's how it should be. So I think, like Ina May Gaskin, who's the most amazing midwife in America, her statistics are like, I think 1% cesarean section, and in America it's close, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's getting close to 50% cesarean section. And in my 12 years, I've transferred 3 people. So yeah, that just goes to show.
I think that was one of my huge misconceptions, because I did think birth was a scary thing. It was so unknown, and being a first-time mum as well, it was really unknown to me. And all I knew was all the stories I'd heard, and I really hadn't heard of many people giving birth at home. In fact, my cousin and one of my close friends both had organised home births, and both had to go into hospital and have emergency cesareans. And they did tell me that, there's a really high rate of transferring for a first-time mum doing a home birth, really high rate of transfer to hospital. And it's more dangerous because, you're then further away and you're in the ambulance. So that did really worry me.
What gets me with that? A lot of women say, well, what if you need to transfer? But you have to transfer anyway. So if you're not planning a home birth and you're planning to go to hospital, let's not use the word transfer. Let's say go in. So when you go into labour, you're told to stay at home for as long as possible, and then you go in. So what's the difference between going in on a normal hospital delivery and then having to transfer at a planned home birth? Do you see what I mean? It's the same thing. Like,
Yes.
it
I
doesn't
suppose
make any
in your
sense to me.
head,
Yeah.
I suppose in your head it's something that's an emergency and that it has to be done right away. And that's actually what Catherine said, because that's what I asked her about. And she said that, you know, they always make sure that there's an ambulance ready to go, you know, if you need it. So that morning when I phone her, or that whatever, you know, time it is, she phones the hospital, make sure there is an available ambulance just in case. And I was like, oh, so she's kind of got it covered. And yeah, she said that nothing is really, and she said she comes with sort of, you know,
But they do have everything that a birth centre would have. They come with, you know, ergometrin, centimetrin, whatever, drawn up for a bleed or whatever. But you're going to have a pretty rubbish midwife to not spot things early on, you know.
Well, that's
any
also...
red flags. So it seldom happens. Now, tell me, how does your birth fare up to normal people's birth stories? I shouldn't say normal people, the average person's birth stories of, oh my God, it was the worst thing I've ever been through. The pain was terrible. How did you feel about your birth?
I must say, and I do say this with a level of guilt as well, because I'm aware that so many stories are very traumatic and emotional for a lot of other people I speak to, like my friends and things. And mine wasn't. It was wonderful. It was one of the most incredible, wonderful experiences of my whole life. I actually feel like a little bit emotional talking about it, because I had my whole family there. They were, you know, all around me. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional talking about it, but you know, it was, and I didn't expect it to be that way. It was, I think, and the thing that I can really pinpoint, I think, for me, that made it so wonderful was the complete and utter calm I felt, because it was intense. Yeah, it hurt. But at no point, and I think this is because I'd already built up a relationship with Catherine the previous 4 weeks, because incidentally, Kai came, I had he basically exactly on his due date, which hardly ever happens. He actually had 2 due dates 1 day apart for some reason. I think they're written down wrong, but yeah, the 21st and the 23rd, and he came on the 22nd. And I really think that's because I was so relaxed, and obviously meant to be, but I really felt relaxed.
So Sophie, when your friends get pregnant, and if you know anyone that's pregnant now, what tips would you give them when they start speaking about hospitals and, oh, I've got to be induced, and oh, I've got to have a cesarean section? What would you say to them?
I think the first thing I'd say is yes, they're your options, and I think I would reiterate that they are options for you to choose, because I think that a lot of women, I heard this a lot sort of in my yoga group, you know, they say, I have to be induced, or I am going to be induced, and they've told me I have to do this and I have to do this. And I think that one of the things that Catherine really reiterated to me, and Andy as well, and my midwives, is it's a choice, it's an option, and it's you ultimately as the mother who decides. And I would just you know, urge people probably to just realize that they have the choice, and maybe look into it, research it. Is it something they really want? And you know, if it's not, then you know, they have the right to say no. And I think many women feel that they don't have that choice, or that option, and I think that actually makes me really sad, because I think as well that I wouldn't have had the wonderful birthing experience I had I not had Catherine the midwife, who would have told me all this.
Well, what's so sad is that, you know, it's all well and good doing your research, but it's what you're typing into Google. You don't know what to write. So birth options, the first thing that come up with is the NHS guidelines. And I mean, people seldom stumble across AIMS or Birthrights UK, and doulas, independent midwives. So many people don't know that's even an option. Like you didn't know. And also there's the misconception that independent midwives and doulas are just for the wealthy, when in both cases, many doulas, many independent midwives will work pro bono, or they will offer a payment plan. I mean, £40 a month, if that's what you can afford. Or you've got the Doula Access Fund, whereby if you're on universal credits, you can get referred by a medical professional. Doula UK will pay for you to have a doula. So it's not just for the wealthy. You know, it's birth workers are doing it because they love of the job, not for the dosh. And
Definitely.
they have to make a living. But it's so sad that the information isn't that freely available. So I think we have to rely on people like yourself who have had a positive experience to shout it out. And I know there's that element of guilt, like you said earlier, that, oh, I had a really good birth and most people didn't. And, you know, myself, I've had two experiences. I've had the complete opposite. I had Dottie 5 months ago, just there, 3 hours, no problem. Then I had Sophie 13 years ago. Couldn't have been worse. Could not have been worse. Now, the difference was, after I had Sophie, I didn't think this is normal. I thought this can't be normal. I'm not having this. That's when I started to research and end up being a doula. But I think lots of people are so traumatized by the experience and they think births like ours are lucky.
Yeah, I've been told that it's lucky.
It's a shame that's...
And I think that's what's made me feel quite passionate about it as well, I think, because I feel like I had the birth that all women should have. You know, obviously, of course, there are, you know, exceptions and problems that do occur, but I think that perhaps they're not as common as we are experiencing them to be. And I think
I was talking to Beverly Beach the other day, and if you guys don't know who she is, she's just been monumental in birth. Like, for the last 40 years, she's been an activist and helping women everywhere and helping women with their, you know, stand up for their rights, autonomy, etc. So I was talking to her about, you know, this intervention rate. So according to the World Health Organization, less than 10% of women will actually need some form of intervention during labour. But if you look at the UK and the intervention rate, and I'm talking not just, you know, cesarean section emergency, I'm talking intervention as in, you know, induction, stretch and sweep, everything. That's an intervention that is unnecessary, doesn't need to happen. You're probably looking somewhere about 80% of births, maybe more, that are being meddled with for no reason. Epidurals, Synto induction, you know, which is a synthetic form of oxytocin, syntocinon. This is intervention. So a lot of women will say, I've had a natural birth, when they've had a vaginal birth. A natural birth is something completely different. You know, if you, I had it, like my first birth, there was an epidural in my back, which didn't work. I had a drip, I had everything, I had prostin. That's not a natural birth, that's just a vaginal birth. And if you look at all that data collectively, you're probably looking north of 80% of women in this country do not have a normal birth. That's shocking. So if the World Health Organization is saying less than 10% of women will need intervention, why is this happening? Who is this for?
The medical system would push for sort of these interventions unless the only thing I can think is a fear of something. Is it easier to have a cesarean so that you know, they feel it's safer? I don't know. All I know is that I had a natural birth. I didn't have anything. I had a birthing pool, but you know, that was it. I used breathing techniques. Techniques. Just, you know, really did. Yeah, I did a bit of hypnobirthing. I suppose that you know, that counts as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that my story is so, in my circle, quite unique, and I just feel it's really sad that women don't get that opportunity, or even, as you said before, get informed that that is, you know, normal, and that's how it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like you pointed out as well, the accessibility of doulas and independent midwives. I mean, I was able to pay in as many, Catherine told me, as many installments as I liked. You know, it was really freeing. And I think that a lot of people don't know this information. And I think that the main thing that women aren't aware they have a choice. And I think, as you said before, if you don't know what to Google, if you don't know you have an option,
yeah,
you're not even going to look at it.
Yeah, you just come across guidelines, and women need to know they are guidelines and guidelines only. It is not law. It is not. I'm so sad hearing this phrase, I'm not allowed. And in fact, Beverly Beach wrote a fantastic book called Am I Allowed? And it explains all your options in there. It's fantastic. You are allowed. You can do what you want. I mean, research your options. It's informed consent. I'm not telling people to give birth in a certain way. I'm telling people, what do you want to do? Look at your evidence and go, well, they're telling me to do this. Is that conducive with the birth I want? And do I really need to do it? You know, that's what I'm saying. Do your research. And if you don't want to be induced, if you don't want to have a cesarean section, look at your options. Ask them. You know, it is not up to you to prove why you don't want to be interfered with. It is up to them to show you that you need to. So you're not put on trial here. You're not on stand saying, well, what about this, that, and the other? You have to say to them, well, show me why I have to, please. And just saying it's recommended, that's not an answer. You know, you need to ask for data, evidence. And then if you're really struggling and you're trying to communicate in a way where they're just not playing ball, you have people like AIMS, the companies like AIMS and Birthrights. You can write to them. They can help you. They can help you write letters and say, look, you're asking me to do X, Y, and Z. Please present me with the evidence. But it's not widely known, is it? I mean, it's
no. And I think
about this.
I think I'll add something in there as well. Like you said, it's not about being on trial. I do feel, and as lovely as my midwife was through the NHS, and she was lovely, she was under immense amounts of pressure, I could tell, because she had back-to-back appointments, and it was very, very rushed. And I did feel that I had to answer her questions quickly. Is everything good? Oh yeah, okay, everything's good. Right. So you know, and it was very rushed, and I think that that in a way you do feel on edge, because I think, first of all, you know, you're not given time to make the choice. So go away, think about it, come back. It's okay, I'm going to book you in for a scan, or I'm going to book you in for an induction. So I don't think you're offered the choice, which makes you feel like you don't have it. And the other thing is, I think, fear. I think that a lot of times women are fearful, you know, especially if it's your first baby. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, you are afraid because I think you hear so many stories. You think birth is dangerous. So you're just going to want to do the best and the safest thing that you can. And if you're told this is the best, safest thing, then you say, yes, okay. And I think that a lot of people don't have time to go and research and read up, because you trust the, you know, the people telling you what is best for you and your baby. And I think that's one of the biggest things is women probably.
I mean, no one's. I mean, 9 times out of 10, no one is scrutinising the personality of midwife. They're always lovely, really nice people. 9 times out of 10, but their work ethic is beyond questionable for the most part. Like,
I think perhaps
10 minutes for an appointment. I mean, you know, that's a guideline thing. It's not they're not choosing to give you such little time, but you know, why aren't they saying, okay, well, this is what the guidelines suggest, but here are your options, and would you like to know any more? Would you like to know about the procedure? Would you like to know about birth physiology? That'd be nice. That'd be a nice start, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think yeah, if you offered more information, I think women would feel more empowered to have a choice. I think that's exactly right. If you don't have the information, you're not aware.
Yeah.
And I think the fear thing is a real factor that plays into it as well. You know, and I think that the big difference I found just personally from my midwife, you know, through my GP surgery with the NHS, lovely as she was, I felt afraid, and I didn't want to stand up and say, no, I don't want that scan. I was afraid to, and I was afraid of what she would think and what she would say. Whereas I think with Catherine's approach, it was, she took all the fear away. You know, it was, this is a natural thing, and I'm here for you, and I'm going to tell you all the information, and you make the decision.
But there you go. There's another bonus. You had care continuity. So that is just, you can't even put a price on that. To know the person that is going to be the birth of your child, you have trust, you have a bond with them. Whereas standard care on the NHS, you have no idea who is going to be watching you in the most intimate moment of your life. And I mean, this is why people hire doulas. They have someone who they trust the whole way through. I mean, that is going out the window now because of COVID, and you're not allowed to bring your doula to hospital with you. You have to make a choice. It's a Sophie's choice thing, isn't it? Like, yeah. Your doula or your partner, you're like, well, which one do I choose?
Yeah.
Or you have an independent midwife. Well, you can't at the moment because there's no insurance, but that's what we're doing this for. You know,
yeah, I think they're really important.
It's awful. People's hands are tied.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And it's, you know, it really is cruel, I think is the word I'd use, you know, to in that moment you feel so vulnerable. The last thing you want to do is fight. The last thing you want to do is ask questions. You know, you're in your zone. Your body's gone into this kind of amazing but crazy overdrive where it's doing its own thing, and you're just focusing on getting through the pain. You can't stop and go, sorry, what are you doing? Sorry, what are you asking? What, you know, you need someone who you trust. And I think that was what was great with Catherine, is because we'd done all that before. So I told her my birth choices. You know, she'd gone through all the options. We'd already decided what kind of birth I was going to have. She knew, you know, what I wanted before. So
isn't it nice that someone can come to your home and go, what do you want?
Yeah.
So this is what you're having.
Exactly. And I think that, you know, as you said, the continuity of care, it wasn't a stranger just walking in that I'd never met going, oh, hang on, I didn't want, I don't know, pain relief or early, I wanted delayed cord clamping, for example, and skin to skin and all that kind of stuff. You know, I didn't have to tell anyone that because Catherine already knew it. So we just did it, and she let me do the thing.
You don't have to repeat yourself. And, you know, with an independent midwife, I think the assumption is we're not going to put our hand in your vagina unless you ask. But the assumption on the NHS is we are going to do that before we even let you walk through these doors. What's that? Literally, that's, I don't even want to say the word for that, but
that was the other thing I didn't have.
Yeah, you can come into our birth centre, but we have to put our hands inside you first. Yeah, that's great. If someone's in labour, that will, if that doesn't stop labour, it will traumatise you.
I think that's the last thing you kind of feel you want. But I think these things are standard practice. So I guess you don't question them, and you know, why would you? And I think it's only when you are offered or experience a different way that can be done, then you start questioning it. Although you questioned it, I suppose, before, but I mean, I hadn't had any experience.
Right. There's no logic there. It just didn't feel right. I thought, no, this can't be normal.
Right.
It just didn't sit right with me. I thought, nah.
See, I do feel lucky in the sense that my first birth experience is, wow, this is the most natural, wonderful thing ever.
Pretty lucky, really. I mean, I was going to say that's a privilege, but it's not. That's your God-given right.
Yeah, and I think you know, pain aside, I mean, it's not about the pain. It's about how you react after, because you forget the pain. It does go away. I mean, you know, we wouldn't have babies again if we did. It's more that it's the, I think, the fear that people attach onto it. Like when my friends tell their stories, you know, it's with a heaviness, it's with a sadness, whereas mine's with a smile and a lightness. And I think I'd love to see more women telling birth stories like that.
Well, I think let's end on that high note. That's beautiful. That's all we want, and that's what we're aiming to do. So we will be doing more of these interviews with more mums, more professionals, celebrities. And if you look out for the documentary When Push Comes to Shove, you'll see it all in one feature-length film. So Sophie, thank you so much for joining me today. And we will be back next week with another mummy to interview. Thank you.